Hi guys, I spoke to Crispin Flintoff of the Not the Andrew Marr Show YouTube channel about Labour, Jeremy Corbyn and Keir Starmer. Crispin had some very interesting things to say about the current Labour Party and the conflict brewing within it. Hope you enjoy this. Good morning everyone, I hope you're all very well. I'm here with a special guest, Crispin from Not the Andrew Marr Show. Thank you so much Crispin for coming on to talk with me today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about the channel?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm Crispin Flintoff. I've been hosting Not the Andrew Marr Show for nearly 3 years. Before that, I had a show called Labour Grassroots, and before that, I had a show called Stay Home for Labour. That was at the beginning of lockdown. That was the first thing I did on Zoom, all on Zoom, and they're all live on Zoom. The whole point of those channels was to bring people together during lockdown who were politically active, and it's just become bigger and bigger, mostly because most of the audience have been purged, pushed away, or disenchanted by the Labour Party since lockdown started, which kind of came along at the same time as Keir Starmer becoming leader. We bring people together who are quite dejected about politics, but we cheer them all up because it's like a community of people who still believe in things like socialism and nationalising industries and keeping the NHS public, not going into foreign invasions, kind of principles that Jeremy Corbyn was talking about when he was leader. That's really what I've been doing for the past 3 years, and it's getting bigger. The channel's becoming more popular. I used to wear a hat because
I saw that in some of the videos. Yes.
Well, I had terrible lockdown hair, and I was trying to disguise it with a hat, and then people said they liked the hat, and then I just kept wearing the hat, some kind of motif of whatever, I don't know. And then someone said, if you don't stop wearing that hat, no one's ever going to take you seriously. So I took the hat off. Now people talk about my hair and say, oh, you've got nice hair. So I don't know what to do. I actually sometimes want to put the hat back on, but I won't.
I'm more inclined to wear a hat because there's nothing here to cover. Well, there's nothing to see. Can I just ask about the name of the channel? So Not the Andrew Marr Show. Why did you choose that?
Oh, well, being a Labour member and activist during the Jeremy Corbyn leadership, I just got so frustrated with the kind of questions that he'd be asked on mainstream political discussion shows, especially Andrew Marr. I don't know why I picked on Andrew Marr, but it's a Sunday morning thing as well, and I wanted it to be an alternative to that. So just calling it Not the Andrew Marr Show, I thought that was quite an attractive way of presenting it. People seem to quite like it, and I could have changed it to Not Laura Kuenssberg Show, but I actually want to keep it in that time. I want people to remember what happened to Jeremy Corbyn with the media during his leadership. So it's just a bit like the Primrose League was named after Disraeli's favourite flower, but I don't imagine many people remember that was why it came about in the first place.
Can I ask you, why, in your opinion, were the media so hostile to Jeremy Corbyn?
Oh, well, it's all coming out. It's just it's not something I really understood at the time. I just didn't understand why they keep attacking him. But it's really foreign policy, economic policy. They are just so opposed to those two aspects of what he was talking about, and they do attack their interests, the interests of those media companies, and the BBC included, Guardian, all of them. They don't want the kind of foreign policy Jeremy Corbyn was talking about, and that's probably the biggest bit. They're run mostly by billionaires. These media companies, the BBC and the Guardian, are probably the worst for how they treated Jeremy Corbyn and they are so, how can you put it, liberal with a small L, but also, I don't know how to put it really. They do not want their status quo. They believe in the status quo. That's all I can say. They don't want change. They are pretty well off journalists in a London mainly bubble who quite like their life. They don't want things to change particularly.
And for example, like affordable housing and things like this, which Jeremy Corbyn, when he was leader of the Labour Party, was pushing for, this would upset the apple cart in a sense, because, or is it more about these people are really disconnected from the lives of ordinary people, and this was somebody who was coming forward and saying, look, we need to change the focus from the London bubble to the rest of the country? Do you think that was something that was rubbing them the wrong way?
I couldn't say it was that. I wouldn't say it was that specifically. It's a whole set of values. Public ownership, for example. If you look at the situation we're in with the gas prices, the energy prices, it's so obvious that public ownership is the best way out of it. Yet the BBC and Guardian, they don't even report it. They don't even have it as an alternative. I saw a BBC article that said these are the choices we've got, and not one choice was public ownership. I think it's hard to understand if it's the management of the BBC being told what they can present, or it's the journalists themselves being blind to the alternatives. But
that's a really interesting question, because
it's hard to say. And if you say it's the management, you could be called a conspiracy theorist. And if you say it's that they're blind to it, then that sounds a bit kind of personal. I mean, it's like saying they're personally deficient. They're limited in intellect or something. It's a hard thing to work out. But all I know is Jeremy Corbyn had a terrible ride on the media every time. And I keep seeing Keir Starmer on these channels, and they never grill him or pick on him for the same kind of questions that they did for Jeremy Corbyn.
So I just want to talk a little bit more about maybe the future of the Labour Party. So Labour are predicted to win the next general election. What would you like to see in a Labour government? I know you disagree with with Keir Starmer and members of the front bench. And there are people I disagree with. For example, Wes Streeting, I think his position on the using private companies within the NHS. It's been described as, yeah, we just need to bring them in temporarily, and then we'll kick them out after. Of course, that's not going to happen. This is privatization by stealth. But is there anything? What would you like to see happen within a Labour government?
I find that difficult to answer, because I have, I believe the Labour Party is not going to make any changes to what we're in already that are sufficient to make a difference. So for me to say what I'd like to see, I could only say I'd like to see Starmer stand down, Streeting stand down, and the Labour Party start to be democratic again, in that it's purged many people for no good reason. I've been expelled from Labour, for example, which is shocking. I mean, I don't even think about my case, but I put on more fundraisers for Labour than anyone in the history of the Labour Party. As an individual, I put on about 250 events.
Wow.
To raise funds for the Labour Party. But when I challenged Starmer and they made up these charges against me that were ridiculous. So the party is run by bureaucrats who have no sense of justice or democracy. That makes me feel very insecure about a Labour government. If a Labour government behaves in the way the party does, then it's a terrifying prospect. Keir Starmer has shown his enthusiasm for authoritarianism, not just in Labour, but in some of the Conservative acts of Parliament that have gone through. He's passed them all, spy cops and stuff like this. He's very much in with the establishment. So a Labour government led by Starmer is bound to disappoint those people who vote for it. I know people who think Starmer's pretending to be centre kind of ground, and think when he gets to government he'll become a socialist. That's just not what's going to happen, I'm afraid, and that will be so disappointing to those people. It's almost like Blair Mark II. You get all this things can only get better in 1997. I was carried away with that in some way. I thought, wow, no, we've got a Labour government. No, Tories again. Wow, let's have a party. And then within a couple of weeks, he's put on charges for students at university that wasn't in the manifesto and was worse than anything the Conservatives had done.
This is something that Starmer has been. I think in 2020 he was talking about getting rid of tuition fees, and now that promise has been quietly removed. I really don't understand the position here. We maybe not going into the lying or the misleading here, but just the policy itself. I think it would be a vote winner. Why would you get rid of tuition? Why would you not get rid of tuition fees?
I don't know. I really don't understand. I don't understand a lot of what he says. I mean, public ownership of an energy companies would be a vote winner.
Yeah.
He's come up with some kind of really weak version of that, which is nothing like public ownership. And he's getting people saying, "Well, that's really cool." Well, I don't understand why he doesn't just do the full thing. But tax policies. He's saying we're not going to tax anyone. We're going to have to make cuts. It's going to be difficult. He's already saying this stuff because he probably thinks he's already getting elected, and he can almost talk as though he's already there. I am very concerned at the prospect of a Starmer government. I think, as someone my dad stood for Labour as a candidate in the parliamentary election. I've stood as a council candidate 3 times. As I say, I've raised more funds individually than anyone on a number of events. I mean, put more events on than anyone else in the history of Labour. But I think Labour led by Starmer would set Labour back forever. There'll have to be an alternative party coming out from this.
Which under first past the post is not a great solution. It would be better maybe under proportional representation, that maybe you could have a party split into different parts where it's more representative of the public or of voters. I'd like to ask a little bit about what's happening with the strikes. So we've seen how Starmer has told the front bench not to attend the strikes, or he has advised against attending the strikes. Mick Lynch, the General Secretary of the RMT, has been very critical of Starmer in particular. Why, when it comes to showing solidarity with workers. Playing devil's advocate for a moment, people would say, well, it's better that he focuses on what's happening in Parliament and not what's happening on the streets, because he needs to win over people who may be not supportive of the strikers. I don't know whether I agree with that. What's your take on that? Why do you think Starmer is separating himself from what's happening with the strike? Because we're seeing strikes all over the economy: teachers, nurses, rail workers, public sector workers as well. Why is the Labour front bench so adamant about not joining in on the strikes, not showing solidarity, in your opinion?
Well, they're advised by people like Peter Mandelson. He's the main person advising Keir Starmer, apparently, and that would be to say, don't do anything that will upset what they think of as their focus group, Middle England sort of thing. Whoever Middle England is,
Mortgage man.
yeah, and it's not fair that they're going on strike, and there's people in other jobs who can't do that, and they're not getting pay offers that they are, and don't look like you're supporting anyone above anyone else, and don't look like old Labour as well. Don't look like you're associated with unions, and you're in their pocket, all that kind of thing. Don't give the Tories any opportunity to say you're just doing what the unions say. Be really careful about that. Play it safe. It's all about how it looks to the media and how it looks to the general public through the media, through that prism. There's no conviction in it at all. There's no idea of these people deserve to be supported. They're decent people working hard, not earning enough. Their working conditions are being undermined by changes in management. It's a terrible situation when you have two parties both playing off the media and not actually having any heart or any kind of conviction whatsoever. It's just depressing, really, isn't it?
So in the future, as we said, it's looking likely that the Labour Party will win a majority, or at least win enough seats to form a government at the next election. What you had said that you'd like Starmer out. Is there anyone within the Labour Party at the moment who you'd like to see replace Starmer? And what is the role of the left, the traditional Labour within the current Labour Party, do you think?
Whoa, is there any one alternative? Well, I would have said before, like some members maybe of the Socialist Campaign Group, or maybe Andy Burnham or something like that. But I think it's got too bad. It's got to the situation where the bureaucrats of the Labour Party are running the party, and they would not allow anyone who had particularly socialist convictions to be in the leadership. So I just don't see that happening. And I think those people who I might have thought would be a possible leader just would not have a chance anyway.
Because Andy Burnham has said in the past that he would consider running for leader.
But he won't become leader if he says stuff that upsets the establishment of the Labour Party. It's like they can get you out for whatever they want. They can find a reason to stop you being selected, or to suspend you, or expel you. That it's such a dark place to be in.
The party seems very split. Well, if we contrast this with, for example, the Conservatives seem completely united. There are factions, of course, within the Conservative Party that want to tear down Rishi Sunak at the minute. There were ones before that wanted to get rid of Boris Johnson. But generally, we see a lot more unity within the Conservative Party than the Labour Party. Why do you think that's so?
I think that's probably changing a bit because they're getting rid of people in the Labour Party, so there's fewer voices of dissent. But
it's a weird way of unity. Just get rid of people.
It was called a broad church. It was a broad church. That's what Harold Wilson used to talk about. You had to have both wings to fly, or something. He said. You can't say that that's the case now, because they are stopping people who were good candidates in the last election, or who nearly won. Who happen to be on the left. They're stopping them being selected, or being on a long list, or even being anywhere near selected as a candidate. It's just there are no fair rules in the party. So I can't. The future for the left is, I'm afraid, outside the Labour Party, because the Labour Party's closed the door. If you're in the Labour Party and you're on the left, you have to keep your head down, not mention Jeremy Corbyn. Don't say anything in solidarity with anyone else. I mean, they've actually taken out people for having motions of saying we support Jeremy Corbyn. They're suspended for actually putting that as a motion. It's so ridiculous. So people like John McDonnell and others in the Socialist Campaign Group haven't got the courage to say this is wrong. This is the wrong thing that Starmer's doing. Not to speak up on Palestine, something like that. They won't say anything because they're worried they'll be having the whip removed. Jeremy Corbyn himself is in a situation where he might not be the candidate in Islington, and he's kind of waiting to find out what's going to happen to him. I mean, he's a former leader. You can't tell me you should treat someone like that who served the party for that long. It's such a ridiculous state.
Do you see it becoming full circle though? Do you see maybe a post-Starmer era where Jeremy Corbyn could be welcomed back into the Labour Party?
No, I don't. You see, the signs were there before Starmer was even elected. People, how can I put it? It's a bit like, if you've got a council, you have a problem with your local council, you try and talk to the councillors to say, can you sort this out? And they have some bureaucrat who says, sorry, we can't do anything about that because of this, that and the other. And the councillor comes back and says, sorry, can't do anything about that. That's what's happening in the Labour Party. The Labour Party is run by bureaucrats who aren't elected, and they tell other people what to do. And that's how it was when I was doing these fundraisers before. There's no democracy in there.
It's not grassroots, yeah.
No, it's not. It's top down, and it's a charade. It's a whole thing about we're the party of the people, but it isn't at all. It's really these people in what's been called shiny suits and pointy shoes, walking around saying this is what's going on. This person should get selected, not that one. I mean, I was stopped from being selected by someone in the regional office. They stop you even getting to the next stage. The bureaucrats are running the party.
Before we finish, I just wanted to ask you about Brexit. Starmer's main mantra is he's going to make Brexit work. I don't know about your position on Brexit, but do you think it's possible? Do you think it's something that can happen, that Brexit can be made to work? Or is it just another political slogan?
It's a slogan. I mean, everything with him's a slogan. Everything with him is thought of how will this go down? What should I say? I don't know. I don't know if you can make Brexit work. But the signs are that they've been trying to make it work and it isn't working. I don't see how Starmer's going to be any better. He went to the Davos, didn't he, to the World Economic Forum to speak there and try to get on with leaders there. But I think the Tories do that themselves anyway.
Yeah, it was strange to see him there and not the Prime Minister.
Well, I think that shows where Labour is. That the leader of the Labour Party even said in an interview he'd rather be in Davos than at Westminster. I mean, we've got someone who's right in the pockets, if you want, of the billionaires, not in the pockets of the trade union leaders that the media make out that he is in.
It's like when we go back to what we were saying earlier about West Streeting and privatization, that it's a real concern for me. I don't live in Britain, obviously, but I have family and friends there, and I'm very concerned about what's happening with the NHS. And there's the possibility, like previous health secretaries, a future health secretary is he in the pocket of the private companies? Someone who's advocating for the use of private companies within the NHS. This is destructive to the NHS. The NHS should be free at the point of use. It should be for all. And this idea of using private companies, I think, once you bring them in, it's very difficult to get rid of them. Even if you change government, it's very difficult to turn back the clock. I imagine you're very concerned about that too.
But the privatization of the NHS has already happened through laws that have been passed gradually, incrementally from the 1990s. Wes Streeting is just following that path. I mean, when you look at the fact that Patricia Hewitt, who was a Labour in the Labour government, was the health secretary, she's been invited by Sunak to work within the NHS to work on how to make it more efficient. And what does that mean? You've got a Labour and the Conservative both agreeing that we have to reform the NHS.
Reform.
These are words you put. Yeah, reform and make efficient. And we can't continue the way it is. It's not working as it is. Well, that's because they've already made it inefficient and reformed it to the point that we don't even know it's been privatized. Most people don't know it's been privatized and keep thinking, oh, it could be privatized. Every year, every time there's an election, Labour says, if we're not careful, they'll take the NHS. They've already done that. And Labour was part of that as well in the Labour government of 97 to 2010.
Like something that really shocked me is how you had Sajid Javid recently talk about, we need to charge people to use their GP. And there was no real pushback from the Labour Party over that. It was shocking. This is a watershed moment where you have a former health secretary. Yeah, he was health secretary for a period. Former health secretary standing up in the House of Commons, or I think it was in the House of Commons, or in a newspaper article saying, we need to start charging people for GP appointments. And as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but there was very little pushback from the Labour Party, at least from the health secretary, over this, which is shocking.
Yeah, Wes Streeting is going above the Conservatives on many of these things, saying stuff about. He attacks GPs all the time. He keeps attacking GPs as if they're the response. They're the problem. You've got to bypass GPs. I mean, Keir Starmer was saying people have to self-refer to something like they've got internal bleeding. He said if you've got internal bleeding, you should be able to self-refer. Most people don't even know. How would you know you've got internal bleeding? I mean, and if you can have a back problem, you don't know what it is. It could be something totally different to what you think it is. They're both going to kill the NHS totally.
It seems they're listening. Yeah, they're listening to their experts or their consultants and not actually understanding what they're talking about. It's very concerning.
Yeah, I honestly, the NHS is the most important issue, because once that has, it's already been privatized, but I don't know, it's a hard thing to see because it's been so cleverly done, incrementally, that we can't see it happening in one big go. It's not like British Gas where you privatize it suddenly. This is all done very slowly. They keep changing the names of these things like primary care groups, CCGs, ICGs. So we don't even know what they are. They've been doing this for decades, and we're too just blinded by this. They're bamboozling us all the time about the NHS, and Labour and the Tories is a false opposition. There's no. It's made up. It's made up, and the NHS is not safe in any one of those two parties' hands.
And then I think we can come back to from the beginning. The media is complicit in this as well, because they're not providing the public with the information they need to understand that it is being privatized. It has been privatized, and it's being privatized on a continuous basis. And that's why I think it's important that there are channels like yourself and others who challenge this, who stand up for the truth, because the public, people who read the Daily Mail, the Express, or even watch stuff on the BBC will not understand what's going on. And that's why I think it's important that there are outlets like yourself and others.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not. I haven't got anything like the coverage that you have, or other channels. But I do think if we have left a trail of documents, like videos as a document in a sense that say this is what's happening at this moment or happened at that moment at that time, then in the future people can see that was that it, we were discussing this, and I think it's good that we can do that now with technology, but we'll never get out to enough people to make a difference, because the other thing that's alerted I'm worried about is social media is now being controlled far more than it was when we thought this would be the new freedom for educating everyone.
Yeah.
Since 2016, the Facebook and Twitter and YouTube have really taken it up to stop people like us getting anything to a big audience. It's been the algorithms and the way it's been run is that we can't do that. So that's even. I mean, it's good that we've got these channels, but in another way, we can't really make a
Breakthrough. Yeah.
massive difference. And it's a horrible reality, really. I mean, the
That's
other thing is, you see, like those mainstream channels, they put videos out. I mean, the Daily Mail or whatever, they put videos out that get far more coverage than anything we'll get. I mean, I look on Twitter, and it's like always GMB News or something on the right stuff or some kind of program like that with all the studio and lighting and the and everyone shares it over and over again. They find some guest that's going to be riled, and it becomes the story of the day, and then anything else is lost. It's like, how are we supposed to compete with that?
yeah. Yeah, it's it reminds me of back in 2016 when you had like Farage appearing on the BBC on a continuous basis, where you know he was reacting to everything and he was able to push his narrative. But Crispin, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on. I leave a link in the description of this video so that people can check out your channel, and please do check out Not the Andrew Marr Show with Crispin. Can you, just before we finish, what can we expect to see from you in the future? Do you have some interesting interviews lined up, or any interesting videos that we should look out for?
Well, every week I'm trying to put a rebuttal on what's happening in the NHS as a priority, because both of the main parties are not saying anything. As you say, the media is not saying anything. I think every week another story comes out about the NHS. We've just got to keep putting the point out what's actually happening. Other than that, it just happens as it comes along. I can't really say what else there is, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more people flood in to watch the channel after your your promotion of some sort. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for this. And,
No, thank you.
and it's good to talk to you, and I think you're doing a great job. And I hope that you flourish even more.
Thanks very much. Thanks a lot.